it's important for us to collaborate with one another. There are so many things out there, so many issues out there that we need to work on, not singularly, but together.
Because we don't sit in our little office and just think about generalizing these problems and issues and barriers that families have. We really get on the ground and go and listen to them and hear their voices.
You know, we have relationship education classes. We're in schools, we're in churches, helping just to partner with them, figure out what's going on in their school, trying to get my finger on the pulse, and being able to bring back to GCO, like, this is what's really going on and this is what we need.
And so we believe hearing their voices just helps us to come up with a comprehensive solution to the problems that they're experiencing.
I was putting more into the relationship than what I was getting out. It showed me how to set up boundaries within a relationship. It would save you a lot of headache and heartache.
Hello, greetings to everyone.
Welcome to Healthy at Home.
So this is our family shield. It can be any shape we decided on a heart.
What are you saying yes to now?
Stay focused on what you have each day in front of you.
Recognize that you do have a choice.
The impact of thankfulness is actually scientifically proven.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joyce Mayberry, and I am the VP for Family Formation here at Georgia Center for Opportunity. Back in March, Georgia Center for Opportunity was one of the ways that we offered or helped to strengthen family. So was for training, to offer training classes to schools, to churches, and also to other nonprofits. And hopefully you gleaned from the video that you just saw that we did that on the ground. We were in the community and doing that. But like all of you, in mid-March, all of that changed, right? Everything changed. We moved to virtual classes. And the goal of that was to bring in or to collaborate with community partners who we already have, but more specifically at this time, to collaborate with licensed professional counselors and marriage and family therapists who could help to identify and also give us some tools on how to help with the whole mental wellness. So now what we're doing is we had to pivot during that time. We started something called a video series called Healthy at Home. And when we brought in those individuals, we literally allowed them to help us, to help our families to be able to have some tools that they can utilize so that they could be very much involved in how to be the stars in their life, if I should say that, if I can say it like that, to help them to have better ways in mental wellness. Today, I am joined by some of those individuals who participated in our video series, and they are Diane Dirks, Jacquelyn Robinson, and Jeff Jones. Today, they're going to help us share some of the great tools that you, our audience, and our families and individuals can utilize to help move forward with the emotional and mental wellness. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. I'd love it if you guys could take a moment to introduce yourselves, your role. I'm going to ask you to say what your role is and how the pandemic has changed the way that you're doing business and why you selected the business that you're in. So if you can help us with that, that would be great. And Jacquelyn, why don't you get us started?
Hi, good afternoon or good prior to afternoon to everyone. My name is Jacquelyn Robinson. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I private practice in Gwinnett County, Georgia, right in the Snellville area. I'm also a professor at Richmond Graduate University. I specialize in the treatment of families. So my area of specialization is in marriage and family therapy and the treatment of bipolar disorders. So primarily I treat families wherein at least one of the members, whether that's mom, dad, or a preteen or teenager, are diagnosed with a bipolar disorder. So I chose to go into this field primarily because it was a calling I felt from God. I try to keep my ear pressed to God's mouth, and I learned early on that I had a heart for God's hurting people. And so with that in mind, I wanted to pursue a life of helping God's hurting people heal.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Diane, what about you?
Good morning. I'm Diane Dirks. I'm also in private practice as a marriage and family therapist, and I'm the executive director of the Center for Navigating Family Change. We're based in Lawrenceville. We have the county contracts that do the required divorcing parents education in the court system. And then there's several therapists that work for me in the organization, and we provide co-parent counseling, parenting coordination, reunification therapy. So our specialty really is working with divorced families, mostly high conflict divorced families. And I get asked all the time, why in the world would you ever do this? Because crazy work. And it is, but I've been divorced myself. And so I come at my work like many other people do, out of life experience, and realize that I had a lot to share. I'm an encourager by nature. And so I just sort of found my way, I guess, in this field through my own life experience, and then getting involved with the court and understanding how the court is not family friendly. So people need additional help outside of the legal help that they get. And there's a huge gap between legal advice and mental health advice. And so we try to balance what people's attorneys are telling them to do, which is usually out of that left brain kind of thinking. But people come to us with all their right brain emotional issues. And so we try to counterbalance what the court, sometimes the damage the court is doing, with trying to help people through the difficult emotions of what they're going through.
Great. Thank you for that, Diane. Jeff, what about you?
Hi, my name is Jeff Jones. I'm a licensed professional counselor, state of Georgia. I started Four Streams Counseling a couple, 3 years ago, and I am in a couple of locations. One is Stone Mountain, just inside DeKalb County, right at the Gwinnett County line. And the other one is I'm in Loganville in Walton County. So I have kind of a wide variety of folks from Gwinnett, DeKalb, Walton that I get to see. My specialty, I have a certification in sexual addiction. Specialty is in the addiction world, dealing with multiple types of addictions, from substance abuse to gaming, just a wide variety. I got into it. I was in ministry for many, many years, in church work, doing student ministry and or pastoral role, and just see that moving into the counseling area is an extension of that ministry, to be able to sit more closely with hurting individuals, people who feel stuck, hopeless, and they're just looking to find really a sense of their identity, who they are. Live from a place of higher integrity, and to become really focused on helping people become more intentional in their lives, in their daily lives, in their relationships and families. Kind of the scope of my work: families, individuals, marriages.
Thank you for that, Jeff. One of the things that I wanted to just go ahead and jump right in, I wanted to find out if you guys saw the actual study that was done through IFS, which is the Institute of Family Studies, and also Wheatley Institute. And basically the the data point that I wanted to pick out of that and find out how you guys in your businesses can see this. But basically the point was 53% of the teens have stated that they are stronger through this pandemic. They're a little bit stronger now. And the study attributed this because of more increased sleep time and increased family time. How do you guys see that? What does that look like from your standpoint in your businesses? Does that make sense to you? Jeff, since you're already on, I'm going to go ahead and let you start.
Diane said earlier, I'm not seeing that 53%. I think most of us agreed we were in the other side, the 47. I think what I'm seeing a lot of is our students who feel a little less pressure, or initially they felt less pressure with school. One of the things that stands out from sessions is those who are online or digital like the fact that their day is shorter, so they are home. They do miss their friends. They do miss the one-on-one social interaction. So there is some isolation. I have a number of clients, students who their tendency is to isolate. So they like to pull back. They pull back into video games, into social media. This has just allowed them to do that even more. And so I've seen more of that, which has probably increased both their anxiety and depression. They just are lacking social interaction. So they find it, and I agreed with the study, they do find it, girls, primarily through social media, Snapchat, Instagram, and other venues. Discord is one that's really popped up that came out of the gaming world. So a lot of the guys, the males, are into gaming, and so they're connecting with friends, and they see their friends, like one refers to a friend in California, but he lives in Georgia. So it's just a very different platform that they've gotten into to find social interaction. But some of them are really struggling being alone, feeling isolated, and the other effects of depression, anxiety, and those things that show up.
Thank you for that, Jeff. I appreciate it. Jacquelyn or Diane, one of you go next. I would love to hear your thoughts about it as well.
Much like Jeff, I'm not seeing that in my practice. What I'm seeing is more the opposite. Some of what I've read regarding the research, the data collected right now on COVID, is that the risky behaviors are increasing. So I've seen incredible regression from my adolescents in practice since about March. I think they started to go a little bit stir crazy around May, and many of them have been on a steady decline since then. And I think a lot of it is that they are home with their parents. And what I've learned over time in treating families is that parents don't do a great job of bracketing their stress from their kids, right? So our kids now don't have that break, right? The kids in our practice don't have that break from mom or dad that they would get from an 8-hour school day, or extracurriculars that they were doing that are now canceled for the fall, right? So there's no football, there's no fall basketball. So they're not getting that break from their parents. So I think a lot of the stress that I'm seeing in my office is an added stress that they're taking on from parents. I've seen an increase in my risky behaviors from my population. I've seen increased aggression. My population of kids, most of them are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so they tend to be very social, in personality. They're fun kids, so they are more, they're a lot more social in general, and they miss that social interaction with their peers, right? And my parents are struggling with how to now put boundaries around things, because what parents are doing is things like the go-to for punishment for kids right now for changing the behaviors is give me the phone, give me your devices, right? It's horrible, right? We can't do that right now because that's their only means of social interaction. So parents are taking the one means of social interaction away, which normally that works for parents. It's just not working during a pandemic. So we're having to learn new ways of decreasing undesired behaviors and increasing the desired behaviors with the parents. So I think that with the parents being on a learning curve, our teenagers, my teenagers, at least in my practice, they're not doing that great. They are regressing.
I think in my practice, the kids I work with are already maybe somewhat in unstable homes. So this environment is an environment of uncertainty. So they react to that, like Jacquelyn was saying, sometimes their only stability is school. That routine of going to school away from the pressure of their parents. You know, when I'm working with high conflict parents, it's a matter of trying to get them to work out of their right brain their left brain instead of their right brain. And when you got kids that don't do that very well themselves, they struggle with being at home with parents who are fighting against one another. So a lot of times I get kids who I saw years ago. You know, I've had more clients that I saw when they were 10 and they're coming back to me when they're 17. You know, I haven't seen them for a long time and now all of a sudden they're screaming, I need to talk to somebody. So I think this environment of uncertainty is really hard on them because they've lost that stability of a routine that feels safe and feels away from the instability sometimes of their own home.
Wow, this information is startling from the standpoint of, I know that there's a rise in mental health, but what do you guys think? Are there any things that you see that helps you to be hopeful? So I want to know from the
The reason I love teenagers is they're so much more hopeful than adults are. And willing to look at themselves and willing to change. And so I love this population. You know, I do a lot of CBT work. And so I'll give them cognitive behavioral things to try and I'll actually do them. And adults just kind of poo-poo it, right? So I think there's a lot of hope there. I encourage teenagers to be creative. I think that's great for all individuals who have stressful situations. But one of the first questions I ask them is, you know, what kind of music do you like? What do you do artistically? Or do you like to write? Do you like to draw, paint, and journal, anything? And I find that they're, again, much more open to their creative side. They haven't been jaded, you know, by having to go to work every day and make a living and take care of bills. And so they're more open to that creativity. And so there's a lot of hope for these teenagers. But on the flip side of that, I think they, unlike adults who were able to see the roller coaster of life, they have a harder time seeing when they're in the down place that there's going to be a better day. So I think that's what sort of is a factor of the teen suicide rate as well, is so they really need parents to be able to say, hey, you know, this is just a season of life. You'll get through this. We'll all get through it. We'll get to the other side. But that's really hard to tell a teenager who just lost their first love, you know, broke up with them. There will be another, you know, because they don't have that life experience. So parents are really important. But like Jacquelyn was saying, parents aren't good at dealing with their own stress. So they're not as available, I think, to their teens. With that kind of advice. We're in that world of uncertainty where they may have parents that don't even have jobs. They lost a job, or in my case, they're going through divorces. And so they're working on their own issues. And I think that's part of why we're seeing a lot of teens in our practice too. They don't have the resources available at home that maybe they did before.
Wow. Jeff, what about you? Do you see any consistencies maybe in demographics in regards to how families are handling this pandemic?
Some of the, I think it tags on to what Diane is saying. In a two-parent home where both parents are present and engaged, I think that fits the 53%. They're there, but when parents are single and they're having to do this alone, and so they're dealing with the stress of maybe digital school, online learning, trying to manage, and they're worried about their own life stressors. Their children pick up on it. So it's those single parent homes are probably the ones that my clients are coming from. When they come in, I think it's one of the few times that they really feel heard, that there's someone who listens, who understands, who takes an interest. And so that's the beginning really of hope for their lives. And as you begin to get to know them and help them identify maybe what are some of the things that are important to them, and what are the steps that they can take. I've noticed that as they become active just in one area of life, they develop more self-confidence. But in terms of demographics, it's a lot of single parent homes are making up those, because the stress and the uncertainty was already there, and it was just increased so much over COVID-19.
Wow. I just want to remind, I'm getting a little feedback. I just want to remind our audience that we will answer questions at the end. So please feel free to click on the Q&A button below, and we will answer them at the end of our conversation. So I would like to ask everyone, what are some of the ideas that you have for our audience that could help move them forward, from the sense of what are some things that they can do to help streamline, make things better? Everyone, I believe, kind of mentioned that parents seem to have challenges in actually hiding what's going on with them from their kids. What are some of the things that parents can do to help move their kids forward during this time? And anyone can go first. Jeff, you can, or
my one of the biggest words in my life, just for me personally, but also for parents, and it's surprising, is intentionality. Just be intentional. We have lots of good thoughts, like I want to have a family meal, I want us to go to the mountains to go hiking, I want us to be more active as a family, I want us to do more things as a family, but then it gets lost in the midst of other things. So being intentional by planning and setting aside and creating a consistency of family meals. It's surprising how many students tell me, no, I just kind of go in and get a plate or fix something and go eat by myself in my room and get back on my gaming. And I'm like, you're missing maybe something that's valuable for family. I coach a lot of parents that they say, how do I talk to my children? And I say, well, if you ask them, how was your day? I can guarantee I can tell you what their answer will be. But if you ask them what was the best part of their day, what were the highs, what were their challenges, what were their hurdles, and you really expect them to answer, they will come to the place where they will begin to tell you. And you don't have to fix their problem. You just have to understand and hear their problem. So that just being intentional is important, I believe, for parents.
I second what everything that Jeff said, especially family meals. Like there's research around family meals, kids who have family meals, and this kind of ended right with Generation X. So those 40 something, late 40 something parents stopped eating at the dinner table. And around the same time, we started to see a decline in the mental wellness of the teen population, right? So that I think that's one of the factors, is that kids are spending less time, less intentional time, like Jeff said, with their parents. So I just briefly want to say two things that I tell my parents in my office. There are two things. One, infiltrate and relate. Infiltrate means get inside of their world. Their worlds are filled with walls to keep us out, right? To keep out the adults, right? It's a secret society being a teenager, right? But we have a responsibility to infiltrate that world. Even when you're tired, even when work's been a long day and your boss has been on you all day and things aren't going that great, that doesn't change the responsibility to infiltrate those walls. And once we're inside the walls, once we know a little bit about the teenage world or the preteen world, then we need to relate to it. Tell them stories about your mess ups when you were a teenager and the stupid things you did, and have battles regarding the music. Listen to their music that you hate. Listen to it, and then make them listen to your music, and they'll hate it, and then you laugh over that, right? So you're infiltrating and relating. And then secondarily, and this kind of go from my perspective, it goes hand in hand with spending more time with kids and infiltrating their worlds, and that's spend more time connecting than we spend commanding. Parents are managing households and bills, and I get it, we all are. But I think what I experience with my clients is the parents don't know their kids because all the time is spent telling them to do the next thing, right? Okay, clean the kitchen, right? Take your shower, go to bed, wake up, go to school, get ready for practice. And we spend a lot of time commanding kids and not as much time connecting with them. So parents don't know their kids. When I share things with parents, sometimes they're like, what? He said that? Really? I didn't know he felt that way. All you have to do is just be still and connect rather than command. It may not seem like you can connect with the kids, but they're so hungry for it. They're so hungry for it. And if you start it, they will eat it up. So connect and command, infiltrate and relate.
Oh my God, Jackie, I love that. That was awesome. So infiltrate and relate, and connect versus command.
Right. Connect more than you command. We have to command, right? We're parents. We need to give directives, but we need to make sure that we're connecting more than we're commanding them.
Okay. Okay, great.
Back on Joyce, that one of the things I tell parents is the difference between lecturing and listening is the ability to be able to say back to your teen what they just told you. And so I'll do that oftentimes with teens and parents in the room. You know, a teen will say, you know, oh, I had a really bad day today. This so-and-so did whatever. And then right away, the parent wants to fix it. Well, what happened? What did you do? You know, get out, gather all the facts, and then say, oh, I'm so sorry you had a bad day. It can be that simple to just sort of parrot back what they're telling you, because they talk really fast because they think that you're too eager to say what you need to say next. And I think that's a great skill. They don't like to do it. They feel silly doing it. But the same thing as Jacquelyn said, they'll eat that up when they realize you're actually listening to what they're saying and they want more of that. Another thing I tell parents and teens is allow yourself to have a range of emotion, especially during this time. You can wake up, and between waking up in the morning and going to bed at night, you can experience joy, sadness, anger, exuberance, deep depression all in one day. All you have to do is watch the television, right? To have all of those feelings. And I think for clients who are driven by their feeling in control, that they try to also control their emotions and don't just allow themselves to feel it. And I think that's a good example for your kids to just be able to say, okay, right now I'm angry. So I'm just gonna go read, or I'm gonna go do something, you know, to kind of dissipate that, and it will go away, and then I'm gonna feel something different in a little while. So that's that cognitive behavioral kind of, don't allow yourself to get stuck in the rut or beat up on yourself because you're kind of sad right now. I think everybody is going through these range of emotions. When kids see parents do that and accept their own emotions and not react too heavily to them, but just have an acceptance, that gives them permission to also experience their range as well.
That was great. Thank you so much for that. Guys, we have like a ton of questions out here. So I'm going to move right to the question and answers. And I'm not going to direct them to any particular person unless the person is asking one particular, but feel free to go ahead and chime in. And if you could do me a favor and mute yourselves, sometimes there's feedback coming through. And so if we can go ahead and you can just unmute when you answer the question, that'd be great. All right, let's see what we have here. Okay, so it says this discussion is more based around family, but what advice do you all have for young people without the family or community structure around them, particularly young people who are going through life transition, like moving, getting a new job, etc.? That's a great question. You gonna go with it, Diane, since you're front and center?
Well, I can, and I'm assuming the person is asking about young adults, correct? I'm assuming, okay. So what advice would I give to life transitions? Is that the question? Am I understanding that correctly? Gosh, I think just like everything else, that range of emotion, you know, moving is hard. Maybe they're getting married, maybe they're having a child, maybe, you know, I think when you're a young adult too, I'm amazed when I talk to young adults who I love that group of people, but they already feel like they've made too many mistakes, you know? And I'm thinking, man, when I was in my 20s, that was the decade of mistakes, right? Where you're, as a parent, you're sitting back going, oh, please, I hope my 20 something is going to survive their 20s. And then by the time they're 30, you're like, whew, okay, I've done something right. So I try to encourage those young adults that this is a time of trial and error, and it's okay. If you make the wrong decision, there's not many decisions in life that are going to, you know, change your life forever and ever. So to just allow themselves the opportunity to try things, and if it doesn't work out, you moved into the wrong apartment, then you'll figure it out and you'll do something better. And by the time they reach that next decade, they will have a lot of wisdom under their belt and will be able to make better decisions. And at my age, I only wish I was in my 30s. So lots of encouragement for those in their 20s.
That's great. Does anyone else have any other answers to that?
I'll second that. I'll say for that time in your life, the early adulthood is great because it's the only time in your life is the time that you'll be able to just focus on you, right? Because when you're a kid, it's your parents and their stuff. And once you have a family, it's your spouse or significant other and your children, right? Early adulthood is so beautiful because that's the one time in one point in life where you can just focus on yourself. And I wish I'd known that when I was in my early 20s or in my 20s at all. I wish I'd known that. So embrace it. Embrace the time that you have alone and use it to build yourself and use that time to make yourself well. So do that soul searching that one needs to do in their 20s. Figure out who you want to be, what you want to believe. Go to therapy, right? Right now, I know 20 somethings are very busy people because you guys work a lot and you guys are pursuing advanced degrees and things like that. But right now, counseling is virtual in Georgia, right? We can now counsel virtually. Set up an appointment with a therapist to explore all the issues you know you have, right? Before you get into that long-term relationship. And please, 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 please don't focus on getting into a relationship. There's plenty of time for that. Focus on yourself and just kind of build that wellness that you won't have time to focus on in the same way once your life advances to parenthood in a spousal relationship.
Thank you for that, Jacqueline. Another question. Do you guys have any practical tips for helping children cope with isolation right now? How about we start with you, Jeff?
Trying to help them find places where there are natural social interactions. I mean, I see a lot of folks that get referred from churches and ministry-based. So finding churches who are doing small group type of settings, maybe in people's homes, or it's less about the crowd and the big group, and it's more about the smaller group where they can have and develop social interactions and find places where they get to reconnect, maybe with some of their friends, or build new relationships and new friends. Isolation is kind of a negative cycle. It just grows on itself. And people almost become more and more so they don't want to get out. Then they develop almost a social anxiety where they believe, I can't go out and relate to other people. So then they have to overcome some of the beliefs. So giving them finding those safe environments, they can go out, find community, connect with other people in healthy ways, would be important.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Jeff. What type of long-term mental health consequences do you see as a byproduct of this pandemic and the related shutdowns? You gonna start, Jeff, since you're right here?
Sure. One of the things that I'm seeing down into, and I don't do a lot of children. I work with a lady who does work with children, is just the degree of gaming that children have. I believe they're spending more time, and it's replacing outdoor activities. It's replacing a lot of things, but video gaming does not give you the endorphins and epinephrine that outdoor exercise. It does not replace being out in the sun. It does not replace physical activity. It's not a negative, a bad thing. It can be a positive to help somebody relax. But talking with a student who says that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon they get on, and sometimes at 11, 1, or 2 o'clock in the morning they're getting off, and this is daily. Then I was doing the math and thinking, okay, are they really being honest with me, or are they minimizing? And I'm thinking they're spending close to 70 hours a week in gaming. So I can see why in our mental health world, it's moving closer and closer to a diagnosable disorder. It's replacing something, and I'm not saying it is bad. It just is, it's like any other addictive type compulsive behavior. It just grows. And that's when it becomes negative.
Oh my goodness. That sounds very sad. What about you ladies? Do you see any other type of long-term consequences?
I wonder about complicated grief in the future. So many people are losing people. A friend of mine just lost her grandmother who raised her last night, and they couldn't say goodbye. And that's been the mantra, like in the media, we've heard that a lot as well. So what I wonder is if in the future we're going to see a lot more complicated grief from these family members who've lost people abruptly, and they didn't get a chance to say their goodbyes, didn't get a chance to grieve properly. I do wonder about that. And then the gaming as well. I agree with Jeff wholeheartedly that gaming, parents have to put parameters around the gaming because it contributes to antisocial behaviors. Millennials will hate that I said that, but it does. So I wonder if we'll see more antisocial behaviors
in the coming young adults going forward? I don't know. I just wonder about these things.
Oh my goodness.
In the population that I work with, COVID has been weaponized just much like it has been in the media with politics. So for a person, many of the people that we work with in these high conflict co-parent situations, I would say the vast majority of them, at least one person has some sort of access to personality disorder. And they have been using COVID as a way to control the other parent. And you may have one parent who thinks COVID is a hoax, and the other parent might be very overprotective. And now it's being used as a way to put the kids in the middle, use the kids as a pawn. And it makes me really sad to see that, because those are the things that put people back in court. And we know that court cases are harmful to children if they spend their childhood in and out of court. And I keep telling people there's going to be a lot of grace around choices made around COVID. So don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars thinking a judge is going to think you're right, because we don't know what's right and wrong. We're just supposed to be doing the best we can. So I worry a little bit, maybe not long-term like Jacquelyn was talking about. I agree with her about the complicated grief. But I worry that this throws families unnecessarily into the court system because it's weaponized, and our political leaders aren't helping the situation by being an example of how to weaponize something that we all should just simply be working together on.
Thank you for that. Guys, we have to end on a high note, okay? I would like to know from each of you, just take about 30 seconds and let me know, what is it that you're excited about with your families from what you're seeing? Tell me, I need hope, guys. Give me one thing that you're excited about.
There's a willingness for people to seek help and to come in, to ask, to be open to help, bringing students in. And sometimes I see that students are resistant to coming in. And once they come in and find, wow, this is not somebody here to fix me, this is somebody here to hear me, they then develop hope. So it's a willingness of people and families to come in and deal with the things that are going on.
Contrary to what people might believe, I would rather keep marriages together than help them stay apart. So I have seen more couples now than I ever have in my practice. I think COVID really strained and put challenges to couples, especially to those who were already struggling with some marital issues. And so I have found some real joy lately in helping couples get back on track. And so, yeah, like Jeff said, they're seeking help where they might not have sought it before. This has allowed things to come to light that they really realized, hey, we need some help. And so I'm very encouraged by that.
That's great. Okay, you, Jacquelyn, you got like 30 seconds, then we got to close it out.
Normalizing of psychiatric issues. I love that it's just normal now. I love that kids think it's normal, to have depression, because it is. I love that parents talk about what antidepressants they're on, because many of them are. So I just love that it is not something that's so taboo anymore. It's now something that is a part of life here in our culture. And we can talk about it without shame.
Thank you all so much.